All right, I'm here with my buddy Kobe. This is Kobe's roadmap to success. You're pretty relaxed. If a dog lays down, that's a good indication they're relaxed. Now, I think in Kobe's situation here, we've got a situation where a dog is confused. I think that he has been spoiled. I think he also thinks that his job is to protect his humans because his humans haven't really communicated to him what he could do to contribute to the group. In the dog world, they have to do something and contribute. They can't just look cute, even though he's adorably cute. He has to do something to earn his keep. And if we don't tell him what he could do, then he's going to do things on his own, but he sees things from a dog's perspective, not from a human's perspective. He thinks, I think, in his case, that his job is to be the protector of the human who's filming me right now. So he barks at anybody that disagrees. And normally I only do one video besides this one, but in this case I did two because I think to stop the barking, we want to do the video where we treat him after the person moves. Now this is a form of counter conditioning. Now the important stage is that the stimulus happens. In this case, I take a step or stand up or sneeze or whatever it is. And if he doesn't react, then we give him the treat. This means that the step or the sneeze is an indicator I'm about to get a treat. Right now, what happens is guardians are kind of do this inverted way. Now, it's important to understand for dogs, good attention and bad attention is the same thing. So if I stood up and he starts barking and the guardian say, quiet, he's like, oh, I got sweet attention for when I barked. So clearly, if I want attention from my humans, I'm going to bark and get attention. And again, that is confusing for us because as humans, we mean, well, I'm correcting you. But for him, that means it's validating. So this flips it. So the movement or the sneeze or this picking up the chair or whatever it is an indicator that I get a good treat. So watch the video above for that. If you have any questions on that, let me know. Now, the other video that we did above is what's called a conditioned emotional response. You saw that we got him to put this harness on him, which he normally doesn't like. After we filmed this, the guardian was able to put this very fashionable dog jacket on him. And the great thing about it is he did all of the work. We presented it. If he put his head through the veil, he got a treat. If he didn't, nothing happened. And it took us about 10 minutes, but eventually he liked it. Now, and he did it all himself. What I would recommend the guardians do is practice this at times when you're not going to leave. Practice this at times when you're not going to take him for a walk. So he just gets gradually used to putting his feet in this harness, and then we leash it up, and then we give him the treat and say wardrobe. Or maybe we, whatever, maybe suit up and wardrobe. Come up with the fun command words. Remember, dogs should read facial expressions. So coming up with fun command words is very motivating for our dogs. One of the things I ask my clients is, what could the dog do to make you happy? And most of my clients would give me a list of things they don't want the dog to do. Stop barking, stop nipping, stop jumping, stop peeing in the house. Well, these are things we don't want the dog to do. We need to communicate to the dog what it can do to make us happy. We used to give dogs jobs. So I want to keep, these guys would make sure there's no rats or mice around. Well, we already have that taken care of, so there's nothing for him to do. And so it's hard for them to have self-esteem. Those of us who have lower self-esteem and lower confidence are usually most emotional and freak out the most. And so he means well, but he doesn't know what he can do to make us happy. So one of the things I went over with the guardians was what I call petting with a purpose. Now, I'm on TV a lot, and this is always what they want to know. What's the one thing that you can do that is the most beneficial? You have you can talk, it's just for you guys.
Oh, your mom wants to know if you want her to come over.
Remember, you're recording.
Yeah, sure, yeah. I guess, yeah.
Yes or no?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so basically, petting with a purpose is what it sounds like. It's petting your dog for a reason. So if he comes and jumps up on my lap, he's kind of taking possession of me. Now, we look at it as a cute thing, but in the dog world, he says, mine. Well, now he's being possessed of me, but I belong to myself, and the guardian belongs to herself, and mom belongs to herself. So when he comes out top of you, what I would do is just stand up. The lap disappears, he'll jump down, and then you sit back down, and he might try to jump up again, and you don't disagree. The lap just disappears every time he jumps up without an invitation. I'm not saying he can't be on your lap. You should be on your lap when you give him permission. That's very different. So let's say that he wants on your lap. He jumps up, you stand up, he gets down, and he kind of paws at you like he's doing there, or he whimpers or whatever. You give him a counter order. Leaders tell, followers ask. I want him to identify as a follower. So instead of when he tells me what to do, if he jumps up on me and I pet him, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're rewarding. If you pet a barking dog, you make it more barking. If you pet a nervous dog, you make it more nervous. An anxious dog, more anxious, fearful, aggressive, territorial. And this really is hard for women because women have maternal instincts. It makes you great mothers, wives, sisters, girlfriends, friends, and so on. Now, if he's nervous, I can lay my hand on him and that's associated with touch and affection. But as soon as I start petting him, and this is the most common mistake that people make. Now, we also like to say, good dog. What I would like to say, if he's in a nice, calm and balanced state of mind, I would pet him from here in a slow stroke and say, settle or chill or whatever the word is I'm putting in context. This is what this means. Chill means to relax. So yes, and see those ears are coming up, you're feeling nice and relaxed. So I want, if he thinks he can tell the humans what to do and they do it, then that confuses him to think he's in charge of the humans. If he's in charge of the humans, then other people come in, he barks at them to say, I don't want you in here because my humans don't act like leaders because they don't have any rules for me. And so that means I'm the leader. And the humans don't listen to me, and that stresses me out. So I'm going to bark really hard at people to get them to leave. And when I bark long enough, they do leave. So it seems to work. So what we want him to do is instead have a follower's mindset. And this is where petting with a purpose comes in. So next time he nudges you, paws at you, barks, or whimpers for attention, you give him a counter order. Tell him to sit. If he's already sitting here, ask him to sit here, or ask him to lie down. Better yet, tell him to sit or lie down. Now, dogs learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing. You have 3 seconds to correct or reward a dog for them to have the ability to make the connection, but it has to be repeated over and over enough times consistently. And every time we're inconsistent and don't reinforce it, it confuses them and causes a lot of frustration. So I tell him to sit. He has 3 seconds to sit. If he sits, I would like to pet him under his chin, and I want to say just the word sit, not good sit. Dogs hear the first word you say. So if he doesn't sit, playing hard to get works great for dating. It works great for dogs too. If you don't sit, buddy, I got 12 other things to be doing. I can be watching TV. I can be talking to my mom. I can be drawing. I can be, whatever it is. If we have too much access to something, it's no longer precious to us. If we have limited access to something, it is very valuable. And I want to make your pets very valuable. So what you're telling the dog is, what the dog will realize after a while is, when I tell the humans what to do now, nothing happens. I bark at them, I paw at them, I jump in their lap, nothing happens. Well, maybe if you jump in the lap, you stand up. But boy, when they tell me to sit and I sit, I immediately get attention. And after a while, he'll realize I can't tell the humans what to do anymore. I have to ask, and better than ask, I am going to pay for the privilege of their attention.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pay for it through a currency of obedience. And what will happen is he will start coming and sitting in front of you to say, I'd like to prepay for some attention, please. And that's a much more desirable action than jumping and whimpering and barking.
Yeah.
So when he does that, make sure you reach over, pet him under his chin to facilitate that nose up, that good body mechanic that proud dogs have. And then you say sit, and you pet him as much as you want. Not good sit, not, oh, would a good dog sit? They hear the first word you say. So you say sit, and I pet him as much or as little as I want. Now, I was explaining this to a woman in Santa Monica, and she's petting her little Bichon on the couch. She goes, well, I have a question for you. And I go, okay, well, I'm going to ask you to stop petting your dog real quick. She goes, okay. But what if I just want to pet the dog? I mean, what's the point of having a dog? I mean, I like petting a dog. Like, I understand that, but you're petting your dog in. I'm sorry. That's all right. Hold off on petting your dog till we get done. She goes, okay. But I also just talked to the doctor, and I have high blood pressure. And the doctor said if I pet my dog, it'll lower my blood pressure. You're petting your dog in. 3 times in a 15-second window of her intending not to pet her dog, she involuntarily reached over just like I did. She wasn't aware of how often she did it. So I'd like all the people that are in the house to use the same platform, because remember, inconsistency is extraordinarily frustrating and confusing for dogs, and it contributes to a lot of problems. So I think we have somebody arriving who's probably going to be watching this. And so let her know we're filming. And so basically what we want to do instead is we use the watchword of paycheck. So that if somebody comes in and sees that I'm petting him and that he's standing up, they say paycheck to me. I stop petting him. That means, paycheck means I suspect you forgot to pet with a purpose. Even if I did it right, I stop petting and I tell him to sit. If he sits within that 3-second window, I pet him under his chin and say sit. If he didn't, he isn't getting any attention. And so this is kind of not a gotcha. It's just to let us know, hey, you need to pet with a purpose. And I suspect you may have forgotten. And to answer the question, even if you want to pet the dog, you should still tell the dog to sit. That helps him. Sitting is a more subordinate body posture. It helps the dog feel more relaxed and more comfortable. If it knows that there's somebody in charge, then I don't have to be responsible for barking at everyone or all the rest of this stuff. So if you get in the habit of petting with a purpose, every time you pet your dog, it becomes a micro dog training session where 3 important things happen. First of all, it increases the dog's respect for the human, because I'm no longer telling the human what to do, I'm asking. Number 2, it boosts the dog's self-esteem. Instead of getting this attention for being a really good-looking dog, he's getting attention because he's earning the affection. That boosts their self-esteem and confidence. Number 3, it helps him practice sitting. He can sit probably great unless somebody else is in the house, and that's going to be hard for him to sit. So we help him practice, just like I mentioned off camera, we practice things as humans. We learn to drive in a parking lot. We don't learn to drive on the 405 freeway. For some reason, when it comes to dogs, we try to teach them in the hardest possible environment. We have 4 people come over and we want to teach them to be quiet. We got to teach them when it's very easy. And the videos above that we shot earlier are going to show you how to teach him. He didn't bark when I was moving around and moving stuff around the apartment. We didn't bark or protest when we put the harness on or his shirt on. So the things that he didn't want, we created a positive association. He did all the work, and so he didn't protest because he felt good about it. Now, the flip side of that coin is what I call passive training. Passive training is basically rewarding the dog when it does the things that you want. Now, I asked the guardian off camera, what could the dog do to make you happy? The guardian said, well, I prefer that he doesn't bark at people, doesn't bark at sounds in the door, he doesn't run around, blah, blah, blah. Well, those are things we don't want him to do. If we can't tell him in a clear way what he can do to make us happy, he's going to try to figure out on his own, but he thinks at things from a dog's perspective. He thinks he's the guard dog. We don't want him to be the guard dog. So when he barks, we tell him not to. That stresses him out. Just like a mother who tells her child not to run with scissors. And she goes, okay, mommy. Mommy turns around and sees the kid skipping around with scissors. Mom's going to eventually get mad and yell at the child. And she's not mad at the child. She's concerned for the child. And the child's not listening. So that creates frustration. That frustration leads to stress. And we're all pressure vessels. There's only so much any of us have. And then we have to release it. And so the dog thinks, I'm in charge of you because you don't enforce it. You don't have any rules. So I always tell people, imagine if you had a job where your boss said, you know what, I think you're more productive if you answer to yourself. So there's no rules for you. And so there's no rules, there's no consequences. And I think you're trustworthy. Whenever you think you've worked hard enough to deserve a paycheck, you let me know and I'll pay you, no questions asked. That's a lot of the situation that most of my clients create for their dogs. And then we wonder why the dog doesn't listen to us. Your employee is not going to listen to you if that's the job scenario that you've set up for him. So enforcing rules is really, really important. For dogs, leaders are the ones who enforce the boundaries and the limits. And if we don't have any rules, it's hard for the dog to see us acting like a leader. So some of the rules I might suggest is the dog is not allowed to be on your lap unless it's getting an invitation to be on your lap. Jumps up, remember, just stand up like I talked about earlier. And then after, if the dog sits and you feel like inviting the dog on your lap, you invite the dog up. It's your body or your body or your body. You're in charge of doing it. The dog can't, or the dog jumps up on you. Let's say you did invite the dog up and then mom comes and growls at mom while I stand up and you lose that privilege. When we're kids, we get front yard privilege, and then I ran in the street and my neighbor brings me home, says, hey, Terry, your son walked in the street, didn't even look, I almost hit him by the car. Guess what? I lose that privilege. Now I'm back to backyard or in the house only under supervision. It's the same thing for dogs. For some reason, we just give them access to absolutely everything. We have no rules for them, and we wonder why they don't listen. So dogs need rules and structure or a job to do. So passive training and petting with a purpose are the easiest ways that you can do it. Now I use paycheck for means I suspect you petted without a purpose. I have celebrate as my reward word for the dog doing things on its own. Now whenever he sits on his own, we're going to pet him under his chin and say sit. Now let's say I'm sitting here watching TV and he walks up and sits down and I missed it. Well, mom might tell me paycheck or excuse me, celebrate. That means you just missed an opportunity to reward the dog for something we like them doing. So I'd reach over and I'd pet him under his chin and say the word sit and only the word sit. Most of us train our dogs to do the wrong things. Remember, good attention and bad attention to dogs is exactly the same thing. So if I come to you, you ignore it. I sit in front of you, ignore it. I lay down in front of you, ignore it. I drop the treats or the toys, you ignore it. But as soon as I start barking, you correct me. If my goal is to get your attention, I don't care what attention, we're going to train the dog to bark. It's the exact opposite of what we're looking to do. So right now he's nice and settled. So this is a great time to pet him from the nape of his neck in a slow stroke along his spine. And say the word settle, Zen, chill, Buddha, whatever the word is you want, you're putting it in context. When he sits and you pet him on his own and you say sit, you're putting it in context. Then if I ask him, hey Kobe, what can you do to make your guardians happy? Well, they sure like it when I poop, when I come, when I sit, when I lay down. I have names for all of the toys. I drop things. Remember the drop command. So when he has something in his mouth, one of his low value items, pull out a treat very quietly, hold it right here and don't tell him anything. As soon as he drops it, put it in his mouth, and then show him, I'm not a thief. I'm not going to pick your stuff up. After a while, you'll say drop and he'll spit anything out of his mouth because he wants to get that reward. Also, you did some great work with him in terms of clicker training. If you get another dog, you're young, you're going to get other dogs. Dogs are born fearless. From week 3 to week 14 is what's called the critical socialization period. It is the most important development period for any dog. Anything they're exposed to, and once or twice in a positive way, the rest of their life, that's a man, that's a woman in a dress, that's a skateboard, that's a Harley Davidson, that's fireworks. If they didn't see it, they're like, oh my God, what the hell is that blender? So all you have to do is just run the blender and give him a treat. Oh, blender means I get a treat. So after a while, so next time you get a puppy, make sure you take it to puppy school and just message me. I don't care how long it is. I'll still be working with dogs, and I have a list of stuff. I make it easy for you. Other rules that I would make him do. If he wants to go outside, let's say we get him all leashed up and he's ready to go. We go to the door. We tell him to sit one time. I don't want to go outside. He does. So I tell him to sit. He has 3 seconds. Remember to do it. And remember, the more you say it, the less you mean it. So if he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I just drop the leash. I come over here, sit down, watch a little TV. I wait 1 minute. And if he protests or whimpers, I would wait until he stops that before I start the 1 minute timer. Once he calms down, I walk back to the door and command him again, sit. The smallest thing you can do as a dog. And if you can't be bothered to sit, guess what, buddy? I can't open that door. Now I walk away and sit down for 2 minutes, next time for 4 minutes, next time for 8 minutes. I'm not going to punish you. I'm not going to correct. I'm not going to yell at you. But boy, as soon as you sit down, that door flies open. And so after a while, this will train him to go sit at the door as his way of saying, please, can I go outside? Now, the main thing, not the main thing, but another thing that's going to be really important is getting him more exercise. Now, mom does an awesome job of taking him out for walks. But dogs, by his size, probably sleep about 13 to 15 hours a day. Little dogs, less sleep than big dogs. But they need an hour's worth of exercise every 24 hours, sprinkled into small bits. Now, mom is very smart to know that dogs actually burn more energy by sniffing than they do from the locomotion of walking. Now, this downtown area in Santa Monica is not a very great place for a dog that's going to be kind of anxious. So what I'd recommend is going to Montana Street, somewhere between about 12th or 13th and 20th Street between Montana and San Vicente. So that whole area is a beautiful part of Santa Monica. It's giant houses, big yards, not a lot of traffic, so not all the busyness that's here. It's a wonderful place. Please grab a seat. Be comfortable. So basically, if you take him there and let him on these walks and let him sniff as much as he wants, then he feels nice and relaxed. Sniffing burns more energy from walking. It's also very comforting. So he needs more exercise, but sprinkled throughout the day in shorter intervals. So let's talk about some of those creative ways of exercising him. So put him on a retractable harness, go to the stairs, show him you have one of these chicken liver treats that I have, throw it to the bottom of the stairs. Now remember, dogs can read facial expressions. So we want to use fun command words. So maybe we say Bermuda. So remember, the treat goes in the mouth first. He should hear the command word and only the command word after. Not good Bermuda or the dog's name, just Bermuda. So we throw the treat. Kobe runs down and licks it up. We say Bermuda. Then we show him I have another treat. He runs up the stairs. Maybe we call this one Vancouver. And then put the treat in his mouth. And the first time we do it, remember, he should have an empty stomach when he does any exercise other than walking.
If he has a full stomach when you do exercise with him, it could kill him just right away.
It can flip, and then it can be fatal. So about 90 minutes after. Walking is different.
It's weird. I didn't know that.
That's good to know.
You can do it for walking, but for running or any lateral movement, we don't want to do about 90 minutes, or feed him after. Yeah. So we go to the stairs, and we throw those treats up and down the stairs with an empty stomach the first time until he's like, you're crazy. I've been down there 28 times. I'm not going down there anymore. Each down up is 1. Well, 3 to 5 minutes on the stairs is equivalent to a half an hour walk. So if we're going to do the exercises that we have above in this write-up, or somebody's going to come and visit, and we exercise them on the stairs for 3 to 5 minutes, you don't have to go outside. You don't like going outside if it's not a really nice day. You're going to be kind of out of luck, though, because it's Santa Monica. It's almost always a nice day. But basically, then you set him up for success by giving him that exercise. And you can do that. Exercise for dogs is best done every 2 to 4 hours. So if and remember, if he comes up, he's boisterous, he's barky, he's rambunctious, he's saying I need some exercise. Ask yourself, has it been longer than an hour since you got him exercise? If so, take him the stairs. The other thing you can do is get one of those snuffle mats on Amazon. Feed him his kibble. Now, remember, when it comes to food, food is the most important activity for dogs. They spend 90% of their time in the wild eating. When they do kill or capture something, they eat in the order of their rank. So whoever's feeding him should eat something in 5 or more bites first. You don't have to rearrange your schedule. Just get a chip or cracker. So then what I would do is I would feed him as just dry kibble only. And I know we like giving him people food, but for dogs, onion and garlic are both toxic for dogs. And the worst way to get is a little bit every day. And almost every meat or fish or chicken product we have has them. And also we have a very high fat content in our food, which is not really good for dogs. So, and for dogs to be within 7 feet of anybody who's eating is a way of challenging for that. And remember, for dogs, not saying no is the same thing as saying yes. So if I'm eating and he comes up and sits right here, even if he's not begging, it's inappropriate. And so we don't want to give him any people food because that kind of confuses him into wanting to do that. If you do want to give him people food, the way I do it is I'm eating steak and I want to give him a little bit of the steak. I chop it up in little bits, I put it in the microwave, and I leave it till the next day. Then I put it in his bowl. It doesn't smell like my food. Otherwise, he's going to come and challenge. And if the dog comes and gets food from you, it doesn't see you as a leader, and it's going to challenge you more and more. And then listening to you is now optional. So later on, when he's well behaved, if we want to give him a little people food, we can, but be careful about how much we do that. I just lost a dog myself because and I kept him really thin, and he probably got an extra year or two out of his life. If they get a little overweight, it just overtaxes their joints. Now, 1 of every 2 dogs dies of cancer. So if you give your dogs carrots, they ward off one type of cancer in dogs. Broccoli wards off another type. So I would give it little baby carrots, and I would give him give him his bones every once in a while.
Yeah, he doesn't really eat them. He avoids them, but that's why we're feeding him the fresh made food.
You can,
so that
but if you offer me like, okay, David, you can have a hamburger or filet mignon, probably going to eat the filet mignon.
Yeah.
And so my parents would want me to learn to eat the hamburger first, and then every once in a while the filet mignon is a nice reward. But if I get the choice, like I told you about my friend Francis, who said, well, I'm not going to eat anymore. You know, Dad says, can you eat 10 more bites of food? And Francis is 7. She's going to be a little attorney. And Francis says, no, I'm good. And he goes, well, Francis, if you eat 10 more bites, I'll read you a story. And she goes like this. She goes, what do I get if I eat 5 bites? That's why I know she's going to be a little attorney. She's learned to work her parents. By not giving her parents what they want, by not eating, I get more stuff. My other friend who had the child, Bo, they took my advice. They had a little cake in the fridge. They fed her half of her normal meal and didn't say a word to her about eating her food. When she ate all her food, they went out and got the cake, gave it to her, and for the next 3 months, she ate everything they put in front of her and said, is this special cat magic cake meal? So we gave a situation where the child felt that she came and did it on her own, as opposed to, I'm going to withhold and be disobedient to get extra stuff. Dogs are the only animal, like I said earlier, that can read facial expression. They are good at working us. I have a client who's an NFL football player. He weighs 340 pounds. He has a dog smaller than yours. And it's his wife's dog. And he's out walking, and the dog started hitting the trachea and got excited to pull home. And the guys felt super self-conscious. Like, I'm this huge guy, this tiny dog. People think I'm choking my dog. So what do? After a week of doing this, he started taking the leash off the dog's collar. After a week of doing this, he went to put the collar on that attached the leash to the dog. The dog went, the dog learned if I just cough, the leash comes off. It's not that they're calculated, but they know they understand relation. Remember, they learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing. So if every time I cough, the leash comes off, I'll just cough to get the leash to come off. It's kind of the exercise we did above that allowed me to move around the room without any barking, because I moved once and then the dog got a treat. I moved twice and the dog got a treat. 3 times the dog got a treat. After a while, the dog's like, can David move around so I can get another treat? We're creating a positive association. So some of the rules I recommend are sitting at the door, and I would also sit at the elevator door, sit at the door to the building, sit before you let the dog get in the car. But the key is to do it here, because again, we're going to walk away and sit down. Well, if we're outside, now we're waiting with the dog. If we're in here, doesn't sit. When you come here and watch a little TV, you're nice and comfortable. And eventually the dog will sit at the door, and then you at that point can start asking it to sit every door. I would also make it sit every time you cross the street. Sitting is a more subordinate position. It also helps to practice. I had a dog that used to run out in the street, and I did this exercise. She loves to play fetch. If the ball goes in the street, she runs the edge and stops. And it might save the dog's life. So let me see, what else? Other rules that I do, I don't allow, if you're eating, I would say the dog is not allowed to be on the carpet when we're eating food. Now, the way that I disagree with the dog is I make a hissing sound like a cat. If you watch real quick right here, dogs, so many animals make a hissing sound as a warning. So I translate the hiss as to no, don't do that, or don't even think about it, and that's the best way to do it. So as the dog's approaching the boundary, you would make a hissing sound. If you and you have the same intensity. This is level 1 energy I would consider on a scale of 1 to 10. If he's at level 8 and I hiss at level 1, he won't hear it, or if he hears it, he won't respect it. So I want to match or slightly exceed his energy level. Do it before he crosses the threshold, not after. It translates to no, don't do that, or don't even think about doing that. So if you do it right, he'll just turn and walk away. And then the second consequence, if he comes back and crosses the threshold, now it's stand up abruptly. Standing up is the most commanding position for a dog, and front facing is confrontational, which is why he doesn't like it when people stand up, because he thinks you're challenging me. Who the hell are you to challenge me? Because he thinks he's in charge. The more that you enforce these rules, the more he sees you guys acting like leaders. Well, then it's no longer my responsibility to govern people who come in the house. I can go off duty. So the second consequence is to stand up abruptly and turn to face the dog. Your authority goes whatever direction your hips and shoulders are pointing at. So there's a difference between this and this. So when you stand up suddenly and turn to face the dog. Now when you do that, the dog's going to take a step backwards and go, whoa, what happened there? Then the dog's going to say, are you talking to me or you just get stung in the butt by a bee? So the dog will turn and walk this direction or that direction. And if you keep your hips pointed here and the dog walks there, the dog's like, oh sweet, I walked away from her authority, or I read that wrong. So when you stand up and the dog moves around, you keep your dog pivot in front of you until the dog tells you it's done challenging you. And it will tell you that by stop moving. It'll stand, sit, or lie down. Now this is a conversation. So once the dog stops moving, you want to take 2 little steps backwards and only 2 steps. Most people take a whole bunch of steps. When dogs communicate with each other, they take a single bold, overdramatic movement followed by no movement. That no movement is equivalent to a period. So that you stand up suddenly, the dog takes a step backwards, they're like, is he talking to me? Oh yes, he's talking to me. Okay, I stop moving to tell him I'm done challenging. And then I take 2 steps backwards to say, thank you for stop moving. Then I pause for 1 second and put a period at the end of the sentence. Then I go back to what I was doing before. But if what I was doing before is what I'm doing now, when I sit, I lose some perceived authority. So when I sit, I should expect the dog to come back again. So don't sit deeply on the couch like this. Sit kind of on the edge of the couch and you should expect to bounce up and down a couple times. So that's the second consequence. The third consequence is I march deliberately at the dog. Now front facing is confrontational, sideways approachable. This is something for you guys to do, not for your friends to do. So if the dog crossed the threshold again, I would stand up and march directly at the dog. Now if I'm the dog and you march at me and I back up a mile, but I'm still facing you, I'm still challenging because I'm orientated towards you. So you march toward the dog, and I don't mean stomping, I mean moving briskly. The dog needs to think, holy crap, she's gonna run me over. And if you go too soft, the dog will just wait, and if you stop in front of the dog, I'm not saying kick the dog or hurt the dog, I'm force-free and punishment-free. But the dog, if you move suddenly at the dog, it's gonna move out of your way, kind of a flinching experience. You march deliberately at the dog until the dog tells you it's done challenging you, and this time the dog will do that by turning sideways to you or greater away from you. Once it does that, you stop. Freeze. Remember, 3 seconds is your maximum, so stop instantly. Now we go down to the second consequence. The dog moves around. I pivot while I'm stationary. Dog stops moving. I take 2 little steps backwards. I pause for 1 second, and I go back to do what I'm doing. Now we have a series of ways of disagreeing with the dog that the dog understands. The hissing sound I make, because all these animals make a hissing sound. Cats, skunks, deer, bunny rabbits, all sorts of animals, and so it's instinctive. They understand that. The standing up is what dogs do with each other. The moving towards each other is what dogs do with each other. So this is all his native language. He will understand it immediately. Now remember, he's going to probe. His job is to probe. And when he does try to go across the carpet multiple times, he's testing. Is there a doorway there? Is there a doorway there? Remember, not saying no is the same thing as saying yes. So I probe there and you say no. And then again and again and again. And after 15 times, I'm distracted looking here and he crosses the threshold. He's like, oh, that's where the door is. Consistency is the name of the game when it comes to dogs. So create a scenario when you have time to watch it. So if you're going to eat an actual meal here and he's not allowed to be on the carpet, instead of actually doing the meal, cook yourself a slice of bacon or roast beef or whatever it is. Put it down and then pretend like you're eating. And if he tries to cross the threshold, you hiss, stand up, and march, whichever one is appropriate. And he's going to probe and probe and probe. And once he actually sits or lies down, then you put your roast beef away and you eat your salad or whatever it is that you wanted to eat. And so the dog had a warm up now and saw, man, she enforced that rule. I wanted to cross the threshold and she was equal to the task. Every time I challenged her, she said no. She proved to me that she's a leader. So I don't have to bark at people that come around. She's her own powerful woman and she can do it herself. I'm here to support her, not to tell her what to do. Most of us create a situation where our dogs are stressed out because they think that their job is to protect us because we don't have any rules or structure. They're under-exercised and they get to tell us whatever they want to get attention. Petting with a purpose and passive training, like I talked about earlier, are huge. They're huge because it's tiny little things that we repeat over and over and over hundreds of times a day. Every time we enforce a rule, we act like a leader. And we set the dog up for success by getting it exercise. So I kind of have a holistic approach, a lot of different little things. I'm not asking you to do crazy things. I showed you a couple exercises that'll take a little bit of time, but nothing too hard. I want to add little tiny twists to all the things you do every day. And so every time you're moving around, you act like a leader. And so the dog's like, I don't have to protect them. They're going to do it for themselves. All right, anything else you want me to cover or summarize here for you? You can always call me afterwards. I'm here for you, so there's no rush or anything. There's been any other questions you have?
No, I think that's good. I think just watching the first 2 videos will.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, if you do have questions, please.
I do have a question.
Okay.
So when I walk Kobe, his lead is very relaxed, and he sniffs and he does that sort of thing. He will kind of run a little bit sometimes. I'll be careful about the food and stuff, but it's almost guaranteed that on the narrow streets in front of Santa Monica or whatever, he will always take the opposite side. You're supposed to walk how you drive, right?
I'll just stop the video.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Well, let me summarize it.
Okay.
I'll answer that question real quick. So, there's no right or wrong for which side the dog is on. It's whatever your preference is. The book said it
That's
has to be on
what
the
I was
right.
asking.
Okay. Well, I'll get to that. I'll
Okay.
just talk to you personally about it. Well, if you have any questions, please text me or call me. I'm available. I don't care if it's 7 years after the fact. Let me know. Well, this little guy is Kobe. Yes, hey buddy. And I'm David, and this is Kobe's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.
Thank you.